knowing how to properly pronounce. And so what I did was I started taking classes in the evening at the local junior college, interned at the San Francisco Chronicle wine competition, read tons of articles, books, and started to evolve my wine career.
And at Silver Oak, you worked with the public. You worked selling wine, talking to the public about wine, that kind of thing. Was that? I mean, I started out, I think, as you know, at Lambert Bridge doing the same thing, working in the tasting room. And I thought it's an invaluable experience. You get to see people's reaction to wines, and they're very honest sometimes with you.
Yeah, and I would say probably one of the biggest things I learned there is you can't judge a book by its cover. You think that somebody in there from Texas is going to buy 5 cases because they say they have Silver Oak up to here in their cellar, and then someone else who comes in and is learning about Silver Oak and Cabernet, and they leave with a 3-liter, and the Texan leaves you with a $20 tip. So it was a really interesting look into the consumer from that standpoint. But tasting room, yeah, it was a lot of fun. You repeat yourself a lot, but I mean, that's part of the job.
Sure. So you left there and went.
Yeah, from Silver Oak. So after being with Silver Oak for a year and realizing that the Oak Road mobility was tight because the Silver Oak is such a great family and company to work for, nobody left. And so then I started working at Costa Brown and in the marketing department.
And KB, obviously, with me and Pinot and all of that, I mean, I knew Michael and Dan well. They obviously went through several sales, that kind of thing. Were they still there when you started?
Yeah, yep, they were. I was after the first sale and left just shortly after the second sale. And that was a whole new world for me too, because that was the allocation type winery, where at Silver Oak, I would sell you 5 cases if you gave me your credit card. But at Costa Brown, I remember answering the phone and someone saying, I tried your wine at a restaurant. It was so good. Can I buy a case? And I said, thank you so much. I would be happy to put you on an allocation list. And hopefully in 3 years, I'll be able to offer you 3 bottles of Russian River. And so it was a very different model and exposure. And it was a smaller team than Silver Oak. And that was just a whole new world in the wine industry for me, but it was really exciting.
I know this is rather, I don't know if you want to go there. It could be stereotypical in some ways, but were there differences between a Pinot customer and a Cab customer? I mean, did you find they asked different questions? Were looking for anything different?
That's a good question. I would probably say that Pinot customers are more interested in the site, like where it's from, Santa Lucia, Russian River. But I'm also dealing with Costa Brown customers too, who are a little more geeky just in general. To find out about an application list, you have to be looking into the next level of Pinot Noir, I think, other than grocery store wine or Costco or stumbling upon it. But and then I would say Cabernet customers were just more interested in how it tasted. I think that more Pinot Noir customers kind of go for a style, more the Oregon versus Russian River versus, Santa Maria, where Cabernet customers are just more about, Cabernet is just a big tannic grape, and so it just kind of creates its own style as opposed to site, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, Costa Brown's got, I don't know how many vineyard designated wines, but and who knows now, but whatever. It was a lot. Like Siduri had a lot, and we shared a lot of the same vineyards. Sure. People would say, I'm a fan of Rosella's more than I am Gary's, or whatever. They would say that kind of thing. While I imagine at Silver Oak, you have a Napa Cab and an Alexander Valley Cab.
Yeah, and American Oak too. So that's also different.
Sure. And any I mean, you're making wine now, so was there any exposure really to, sometimes like in some companies, marketing never gets a chance to be involved in winemaking kind of thing?
Sure. No, that's a great question. And yeah, I did. I would turn off my computer at the end of the day and during harvest, and I would walk through the breezeway and go and help the harvest team sort fruit. Or if I would be over there setting up tasting for Michael or Dan, and I would see the cellar master walking by, I'd have to walk fast to keep up with him because he was, go, go, go. We have to check this tank and do this. But I would say, what are you doing here? And what about that Chardonnay fruit that came in yesterday? Have you ever forgotten about a tank? What would you do if that happened? I was kind of like that annoying little sister, I think, that just asks why or how. And they were great too, and very patient and responsive. And then I could, pick up a cue when they, just kind of like, I got to go work. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll go check the ozone thief and make sure it's all clean and then go about my day. But I loved the camaraderie that harvest and the grapes brought with people. You have strangers from all over the world hanging around this one table, watching fruit move slowly or quickly by, and you just talk about a lot of stuff. And as many people who know me know that I love to just talk about a lot of stuff. And so it was a lot of fun to see that camaraderie and that energy. But with grapes being an early bird and me loving my sleep, I chose to stay in the marketing realm for a bit.
So Costa Brown, and then you stayed in the Pinot world there, I think, for your next job as well, and went to Martinelli.
Yeah. So after the second sale of Costa Brown, the general manager, David Hale, left and went over to Martinelli, and I followed him shortly after and helped manage the hospitality and events program there. And that was really cool because that was my first exposure to vineyards with Lee Sr., Lee Jr., George. I mean, just the Martinelli family, Jackass Hill, seeing that Zinfandel vineyard, learning from him. I remember seeing Lee Sr. in a vineyard over Blue Ridge in Sonoma Coast. And we were out there with a group of distributors, and he had a glass of wine, and he had set his wine glass down on his foot that it was like propped up while he was motioning to the arms of the vine, the cordons, and was talking about it. And I saw that and like, oh wow, that he's a pro. Like he has been in the vineyard with a wine glass before. And just to see how easily he moved throughout the vine and the vineyard. And I remember one time he said that his dad told him that it takes 2 lifetimes to understand a vineyard. And so his knowledge and the depth that he goes into, it's really impressive. And all the respect to the Martinelli family. And I really enjoyed my time there, but I went to Hall Wine after about a year. I was at Martinelli for about a year.
Okay. And then at Hall, I mean, a company makes some amazing cabs, Sauvignon Blanc. Then they've got the Walt line with Pinot, and Baca was in. I mean, they do a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, they definitely do. They are a wonderful team, a fantastic, another family-run winery, and they're wonderful. And I started there on so the PR manager was on maternity leave, and I filled in for her. Although I don't know if I ever really did, because she was always on emails and there because she's just a rock star worker. Her name's Lisa, and she's fantastic. But so I filled in for her for 3 months. And then in that time, Emily Harrison, who's the now VP of Direct Relations, but she was the director of marketing at the time, she was talking with the Halls, and they had written a book called A Perfect Score. And they wanted to do a book tour and tap into their wine club members, their partner program, their distributors and restaurant accounts, and do a book tour promoting this book. And that just talked about the beginning of their wine world and history and the decision to start their winery and how they focus on things. And so I stayed on when Lisa returned to manage the book. And we got on the New York Times bestseller list. We got number 11. I say it was so good, it got number 1 twice. And so Catherine and we traveled the country for about 6 weeks. We went to about 40 different places, from Hawaii to New York and DC and Miami. We went to Amazon, Google, Texas a couple of times, of course. We just traveled the country and promoted this book through wine dinners and cocktail events and book signing receptions. It was quite the whirlwind, but it was a lot of fun.
And so you did the book tour, and then that was it? Job was done, or?
No, Catherine and I, we got along really well, and there was an opportunity to become her assistant. And so I joined on as her executive assistant, and I was with her for 4 years out of the 5 that I was at Hall. And that was a lot of fun. That was a whole nother world. Once again, the wine industry, being able to from with us and all friends that they could therapy as well.
Your reception kind of got bad there. You froze up for a little bit. So tell everybody again exactly what you were doing.
Is it better now?
Not much.
Yeah. Is it better?
I'm having some issues. I don't know if anyone else is or not. Yes.
Okay. Well,
now go ahead.
Great. Good. Gotta love technology.
Yes. Haven't missed this on Zoom.
Yeah. With Catherine and being her assistant, that exposed me to just the next level, seeing the way that an owner operates within the winery, the partnerships that Hall has through Wine Club, the partner program. They have quite a few different arms, just through Dallas and real estate. And so being able to support her and learn from her was quite honestly invaluable. And I really learned so much from my time there and appreciate just that relationship that her and I built, and the privilege she gave me into seeing all things in the wine world, from distributors to making the wine and walking the vineyards. I used to run around Sacrochet Vineyard up at our house on my lunch break.
And then it was through Hall that you and I met.
Yeah.
And that was, you ended up during COVID kind of running their happy hour daily interview kind of program, and had me on along with, I guess, Gary Francione and Mark Pizzoni to talk about the Santa Lucia Highlands.
Yeah, yep. And Megan Gunderson, the VP of winemaking, hosted you. Yeah, I was the producer. So in COVID, as everybody went to social media, Zooms, things of that sort, Hall went to our social media program, and Lisa, the PR manager, would find various talent, you, Mark, Gary, as well as we had Tina Fey on our show, Julie Louis-Dreyfus, the cast of Schitt's Creek, multiple athletes and country musicians. We had a magician. He was fantastic. I love magic. So it's really exciting.
And me and Gary and Mark. So that it all works together well. Yes. I fit right in with that group. I appreciate that.
Everybody loves wine, and everyone will work for wine. And so we would wine with all of these guests, and with Catherine not traveling as much as she did before, it freed up some of my time And so I joined on that program as the happy hour producer, while Catherine's daughter, Jennifer, was the executive producer who oversaw a bigger umbrella of the program. But yeah, I became a producer, like, figuring out technology and, lighting and all that stuff. Like, I didn't go to school for that. I mean, I didn't go to school for wine either, but, everybody had to pivot so much in 2020, and you had to learn, all these connection issues and things of that sort. But yeah, so we picked it up, and it was a lot of fun. And yeah, I met you through there, and I researched the Clarice program, knowing that you were going to be one of our guests and putting together the outline. And I saw it and I thought, this program looks great. I love this monthly add-on. And then Santa Lucia, Rosella's, Gary's, I mean, those vineyards, wonderful. I knew you have Siduri. So for me, before I'd been tasting any of the wines, I signed up, and yeah, and then you were on our show, and it was a lot of fun.
And so that was kind of where we ended up. I remember you signed up for the whole happy hour went incredibly well. And I saw you'd signed up as a Clarice member. And so we got together and talked, and basically kind of headed from there that I needed somebody to really be involved in running Clarice on the back end of things, and Beaumarchais just had so many things going on. And you were interested in making some wine, and certainly had kind of that freedom to do so, where I could kind of help consult a little bit, but you really made your own, you make your own wine, and it kind of went from there. And so you made the decision to jump ship and come hang out with me a little bit too much, probably.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine jumping ship for anybody but you, and this opportunity to work with you and these wines. Hull was wonderful. The people were lovely. I really enjoyed my time there. But yeah, with everybody talking about pivots and careers, Catherine actually talked about it a lot. She was a lawyer. She was a U.S. ambassador. She's a vintner. So I heard a lot about her stories and decisions to pivot, and just making the decision to do it, and meeting with you and learning from you, and having the opportunity to help your growing businesses and projects. It was an easy decision, but also, like a pivot, which was a little anxious, but I think it's been working out.
It has. So tell us about the wines then. I mean, that's really what everybody is here for, obviously, is to get to know you, yes, but also to talk about the wines and what they have the opportunity to drink. And I mean, I've got some rosé in my glass here. And that's, I guess, kind of the first release, really.
Yeah, my inaugural Rosé 2021, and it's, I think, actually really exciting. I really like this Rosé, and I'm not trying to be biased either. I think that it's from 3 stellar rockstar vineyards. It's from Lakeview. Booker graciously offered and sold me some of their fruit. And then I got some from Santa Lucia Highlands as well. And I won't mention which vineyard that was, but some really good fruit in there, and it's dry, but it has just a really good mouthfeel. And I think it's a bummer to only have 108 cases of this. Well, less now, as Clarice members have taken. Thanks, Chris. I do have a bias. But yes, some Clarice members have purchased some of this wine, but I really like it. And it's a beautiful color. I love the pink on it. And it's just in time for these warmer weathers that we're supposed to be getting.
Yeah, I do think rosé is different nowadays. It used to be just seasonal, and I think that's not quite the case anymore. That people are drinking rosé more throughout the year than they used to.
Yeah, if they're not, they should. because it's delicious, and it's a great ease into some bigger reds, or just to have something a little light. I mean, I don't always want to make a cocktail, but I also don't even want to drink like a red or a Pinot or a white. It's, just a good in between. I've never been disappointed opening up my rosé instead of a red.
And it's all Pinot in this case.
Yep, 100% Pinot. And technically it's a California designated because it comes from those 3 different vineyards. But, and I know that the California designation has a little bit of a negative connotation, but I think we should make California great again. And in that way, just have it be, just some good wine. It's $27, so it's definitely not your regular $13 California designated. I hope that people don't deter away from it because of that.
Well,
I wouldn't make a wine that I didn't want to put my name.
Yeah, I think these days rosé at
Good.
$27 is kind of a fair price. I mean, that's the norm of kind of what very good quality rosé is going for. So the fact that it comes from Pinot brings us to what you've got resting in barrel, some Pinot Noir, and we'll bring in Jim Pratt here as well. Jim, if you can unmute as well. And so Jim is your source for Pinot. And what do you have in barrel right now?
Yeah, I have 9, isn't enough, but they're all tasting beautiful. What I really love about this is that I get clones 115 and 114 from Lakeview Vineyard. And with the 114 clone, I added about 10-15% whole cluster. And then it's mixed with the 115, which was picked a little bit more ripe than the 114. And it just gives really good components between the two different lots. One's really juicy and has those beautiful Russian River notes like red rose petals and strawberries. But the 114 mix with the whole cluster, as Clary's members know, it just gives that good structure and weight balance. And so I think when it comes to blending next month, there's going to be a lot of fun options to play around with.
So Jim, I've been fortunate to work with you since, I don't know, early Siduri days.
Yeah, 2011 is the first time you bought fruit from me from the Sexton vineyard. But prior to that, we were managing a vineyard that you took fruit from for Siduri in the early to mid 2000s.
Yeah, so we've been working as partners together for a long, long time. And one of the things with Clarice that I kind of felt bad about is that the stuff came from Santa Lucia Highlands. And so this was a great opportunity with you and Moret and me kind of consulting from the outside to be able to be involved in working with you again. When did you get involved with Lakeview, and what can you tell everybody about that property?
Right, so Lakeview went in 1998, and it was originally put in as one clone. It was clone 115. It went to a very large winery, and it went into their Appellation blend, and it made good wine, but it was nothing stellar. And I think it was because the owners at that time, I lease it now, but at the time when they put in one clone, which was at the time probably a good farming move, but not a good winemaking move. So when I took it over in 2010 as a lease project, a couple of friends wanted to buy fruit from there, but they said, can we mix it up a little bit and change the clones around? So it's 8 acres, a little over 8 acres in Green Valley of Russian River. So it's kind of a warmer area of Russian River, kind of a banana belt. And we budded over 1 acre of the 115 to 2 different sections of Pommard. And then we also put in the 114 and then a small Burgundy clone. And that really made the difference, so that when the blends got put together, it made really more of an exceptional wine with much more components to it, like Moret was just talking about.
It is. Green Valley has always been interesting to me. I mean, this is not too far from Kiefer, where I worked for some time, so it's not far from there. It is interesting because it's fairly far west in the Russian River, but it is a little warmer than you would think, given that it's to the western edge. This ripens relatively early there.
It does. It's one of our favorite vineyards to farm because we farm. We're a management company besides having this vineyard, and we farm from Forestville out to Sebastopol towards Freestone. And there's a couple of sections that we farm. It's like growing grapes in a bathtub. And in this case, this is a vineyard that you, for the most part, can reliably count on to set a good crop and to come in at a predictable time. And it's warm, but it's not hot. It's clearly, it's not a hot vineyard. It's still clearly Russian River. And which is also an interesting point about what Moret's done with the 3 appellations. She has San Lucia, which is Salinas Valley, which is quite unique in itself. And then she has John Bucher's vineyard up north in the Russian River Valley. And then she has her shining star, which is me, of course. And we're in the Green Valley section. So it's a nice blend of 3 stellar regions.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is fun. Moret, when you saw the vineyard, what was it that really attracted you to it?
Me.
Yes, Jim.
Yeah. Besides me, yeah.
Moret, you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes, obviously Jim attracted me to the vineyard. I've seen a lot of vineyards just being in the industry for 10 years, and there's a clear distinction between a vineyard that's cared for and that wants to make good grapes for good wine versus one that just wants crop and juice. And I could tell quickly from seeing Jim's farming and the care of the vineyard that it was one that was to make good wine. And knowing his reputation with the other wineries and the other vineyards, it was really an easy decision. It just more then came, okay, then what do I do with it when I get this fruit into the cellar? Not concerned about working with someone who wasn't going to be like-minded with me, and that we wanted quality over quantity.
And I know, Jim, that's something, I mean, you've worked with a lot of different winemakers. Having winemakers involved in the process, some vineyard managers hate that, quite frankly. Winemakers are a pain in the ass. But I've never found that about you, and you seem to like that.
Yeah, we do. There are some winemakers that are, as you said, but I found that most of them are Cabernet and Merlot winemakers. But with Pinot winemakers, as Moret pointed out before, it's the reflection of the fruit is dependent on the site. So it does take a team effort, and we have a good viticulture team, but the winery is involved because the style is dictated once it's out of the vineyard into the winery. And so having the winemaker be involved or aware of what's going on takes some pressure off and makes harvest go so much easier so that we get the same end result. And the bottom line is Pinot Noir is very expensive. And so winemakers have every right to want to know what's going on and when and call some of the shots at the end. So we're fully aware of that. So, but then again, it's a joint effort, and it's a lot of fun when you have somebody involved. And in Moret's case, who's learning it and quite advanced at it, but still learning the viticulture part, it's fun to share that. So, I'm not a winemaker, so I don't know the wine part of it, so I can talk to her or you about this, and I'm happy to talk to her about the viticulture part of it.
Stephen asked about fog at the vineyard.
I saw that. So really good question. So fog is always going to be a part of the Russian River Valley. And where we are in Green Valley, we get foggy mornings, overcast mornings, and the fog comes up through the Russian River and then kind of spreads out to the vineyards. Excuse me. There are sites in Russian River that are actually coastal influence. We have a vineyard out towards Freestone where the fog comes up from the coast itself. So it's more of a maritime effect. So yes, the answer is we do get consistent fog and cool weather. And if it's not specifically fog, it's an influence from the fog that reaches into Green Valley.
What did you think of 2021 as far as like a growing season?
Sorry, wait. I'm gonna quick right here. So going back real quick to where Jim was responding to working with the winemakers and preferring that over, just not being involved or whatnot. But I remember last year, and it was my first time working with Jim, and so he's like, I don't know what she's gonna do or what she's gonna call for, and same with me working with Jim. I mean, that's part of the fun of this relationship. But I went through the vineyard and I wanted to drop a little bit more fruit and was concerned because because I was purchasing by the ton. So if I drop more fruit, then that means, eventually less money for Jim. And he said, whatever you got to do to make good wine, that's what it's about. And it was just like, oh my gosh, that felt so good to know that there was somebody on that mindset and level with me and with us, than having someone say, oh, well, I don't know. Okay, well, then I'm going to add more water to plump up the fruit that's there. And it was really being on that same page. And so, Jim, I just got to give a shout out to you and appreciate that, with your mindset matching up with ours in that regard, as opposed to just saying, nope, I want, to make this much off of this piece of land and make the wine that you can off of it. You could have gone a completely different way. So I just really respect that about you.
No,
and so thank you.
No, I appreciate that. And it was a fair response. It wasn't anything that was unrealistic. It was fair. So we were absolutely fine with it.
I do remember, Moret, you going out to the vineyard with 3 people that generally work in the vineyard, and you were out there thinning with them. And I forgot, how many rows did you have? 17 rows, something like that?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We had like 25 rows to do. And the 3 guys did about 23 of them. and I got about 2 in the same amount of time. And so I think we were out there for like 4 hours. So I did 1 row in 2 hours, just because I looked at each cluster and I'm like, oh, which one do I want to drop? This one, it's a little clustered here. Okay, I'm going to drop this one. And as opposed to just, oh, snip, snip, snip. And I was just very much more intentional, like, oh, sorry, but like, all right, I'm giving you the hope. Like, talking to the clusters and just saying, all right, I expect you to do good if I'm leaving you on the vine.
But it might have been harvest, might have been done by the time you finished thinning at the rate you went compared to the rate. And that is something, Jim, you've had a really good
weeks or something like that.
Yeah, but Jim, you've had a really good crew for a long time.
Right, and that's a really important point. When we farm, we try to send the same crew to do certain specific tasks year after year after year after year. So we have 4 crews out in our vineyards. We have a total of 300 acres, and that's the 4 crews have pruned the same vineyard for the last 5, 6, 7, in some cases 10 years. And then when we go through the shoot thinning stage, it's usually the same crew. And when we go into the crop thinning stage, which Moret brought up, is a real critical stage, we send the same crew in there. And you got to send the crew in that knows it, because we pay by the piece rate, so they are taking off material that they would be getting paid for. But in the whole scheme of things, it really doesn't reduce what they're going to make, and they're very focused on the quality as well. And then during harvest, we're in there as a group, and again, the same crew comes in and picks, and they know what our winemakers are like. We have meetings with all the guys and the foremen and say, this block is going to this winery, they want this, they don't want this. So it makes it a seamless process. And then just to make sure it went right, Moret brought her mother out during harvest to make sure we were staying in line, and we knew that we had a sharp winemaker there.
I remember that night, because you do pick at night.
We're all night, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm on a harvest schedule where I go to sleep at like 8 or 9. And I think I came out for the harvest as well, took like 2 pictures and then went and slept in the car. And right. Ray and Mom, you were out working. Ray,
yep, we were
You remember that now.
Yeah, we all got along quite
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
It went good.
Yeah, Mom and I were pulling the leaves in front of the crew that was pulling off the fruit, and they were so fast and we were so slow that we would at times have to run like 5-6 rows up ahead, so we weren't slowing them down, because it was a benefit to pull out the leaves there versus a Giants game was in overtime, and so you were in the car listening to them playing. I think they were like inning 12 or something.
I think it went 16 or 17. I think I fell asleep before it was done. So
yeah, and you were lucky because you were in the car that was had the heater on.
Yeah.
And it was pretty chilly at 11:30 at night. But
you know, you asked about the harvest. I forgot about that because the Giants won the pennant that year and it went down to the last game. So we were out in the vineyard because the guys go to work at 9 at night, and then they work until 4 in the morning, and the games would go, if we're on the West Coast, they would go to, I forgot about that. That was fun.
That was the year. It was the Giants and Dodgers 2021, not that long ago, but they went down really to the wire there. So other than the Giants performance, the vintage, I feel really good about how the 21s have turned out. Jim, I mean, your thought, I mean, from a vineyard point of view, I think things were quite good.
They were, and it was a relief that we didn't go through another 2020 where we had a lot of smoke issues. Lakeview skirted it because it was one of the earlier vineyards, but we still had some problems out there. But so that in itself was nice, and the tonnage overall was good. So that gave us something to work with, and we actually did have to go in some of our vineyards and reduce the fruit down. So quality-wise, as a grower, I thought it went well. There was no major hiccups, no surprises. We had enough water. We didn't get any big heat blasts, and thank God we had no fires. We pretty much had enough labor. We were able to get all the wineries work done on time. So it went well. I was pleased. And again, the tonnage-wise, in my mind, between bud break and harvest, I think the quality was good. Tonnage was not something we had to argue about with anybody. So I'm pleased. I'm hoping that the winemakers are still pleased as well.
And Moret, when you brought the fruit in, I remember when it came into the winery, it was incredibly clean, showed up early and looked pretty fantastic.
Yeah. I had zero complaints or concerns. It was, I was spoiled, honestly, with my first vintage being with Jim and not 2020 or 2011. Yeah, it was really cool. And Mom was there. Mom wants to be involved in all things. And so yeah, she helped sort, and there wasn't really much botrytis. Not even that many pincher bugs, quite honestly. It was we were spoiled. It was exciting.
So, I have a distinct style with Clarice, which is different, where I'm doing a lot of whole cluster, picking a little bit earlier. Where do you fall? What was kind of your goal for Pinot?
That's a great question. So at Toomey, that was my first time when I was tasting a Pinot Noir. It was a Russian River, and where I actually tasted the red rose petals and the strawberries, and like, oh my gosh, this is red rose petals. I get it. Like this, it's, you always get the question, oh, so when do you add the red rose petals or the blueberries or the black tea? And so I really appreciated that about Russian River, and that was always special to me. So that's why I wanted to do a Russian River first for Moret Brealynn. But then also, so I love that like femininity that you get from those with that kind of style. But having worked at Costa Brown, I really appreciated that mouthfeel and that weight. And then also 5 years at a cab house. I mean, I definitely wanted a bigger wine. And so So that's why I went in the style of having a little bit more new oak to add a little bit more weight to the that enzyme that Philippe Cambie introduced us to, the vinozyme, which has a little bit more extraction from the fruit, and then also putting some whole cluster in there for a little bit more palate structure as well. And I think that all of that has really worked well together from tasting my barrels, and everybody else agrees. Everyone that I've shared my wine with, they all think it's, really beautiful in terms of like those barrel samples. I don't know if you actually tell someone straight to their face that this barrel doesn't taste good, but everybody else has been favorable to these barrels. So I'm really excited for next month and when we put together the final blend. And of course, Mom will be there as well.
That is the question. Tell everybody what we got in front of us and what's left for us to do.
As far as the
blending process. We just worked on Clarice blends over the last couple of days.
We've worked on Clarice blends. That was a lot of fun. We worked with a little bit for the Stray Dog blend ish. The other wine that we have out right now, it's Stray Dogs with 10% benefiting local and national animal shelters. So we're going to be blending, and then just a heads up, everyone, the wine's going to be under screw cap instead of cork. When I originally thought about what kind of wine I would do and how I would package it, I always thought cork, but then supply chains and the availability of screw cap bottles versus corked bottles made the decision really easy, because if you can make a wine but you can't put it in a bottle, I don't know what good that does. And so it's going to be under screw cap. But my overall thought with that is, I can't tell you how many times I've heard in the tasting room, in the wine industry, my own self, where you say, I saved this bottle for 15 years or for 10 years, or we open it up on our anniversary, my birthday, and it was corked. And that's just so disappointing. And so I'm excited with screw cap, because obviously that's not an issue in the same way that it is with some corks.
And I can promise you, Clarice members don't mind screw cap, so that's not a concern. They've gotten used to it there.
Yeah, you've conditioned them for sure.
Right. So and
it is much easier to open up, obviously, no corkscrew needed. But just the perception and just the tradition of having a cork, being able to write on a cork, 12 to 21 or whatever, and stuff. So I was a little sad to see that little memento part was going to be gone, and I'm trying to figure out some other way to incorporate some way to save, the wine, because these are going to be special wines, I think. Honestly, from working at Silver Oak and Costa Brown, Martinelli, Hall, I can't really imagine making a bulk wine type wine. And no offense to those, it's like Coors Light. There's a time and a place for all of those wines, but the wine that my name's going to be under, it's going to be, more of a special, well-made, good grapes, the right barrels, that type of procedure.
So then blend next month, bottle in August and
July,
and then release in the fall.
Yep.
After harvest.
Release in the fall. After harvest, I'll be a little busy.
So then last but not least, we do want to talk, and we've got maybe 5 or so minutes left, about Stray Dogs, the other wine that you do have available right now, and kind of first read. And this is a 2020, and you kind of started really in 2021, but this was an opportunity that presented itself to you and me and seemed too good to pass up. So tell everybody about how that came about.
Yeah, so the Stray Dogs, it is a a mixture of Grenache, Mourvedre, and Pinot Noir, mostly Grenache, and then 33% Pinot and 11% Mourvedre. And really it's the idea that between you and me and Beaumarchais, we kind of have some barrels that aren't going to be in the final Rosella's blend, but all still taste really good. And so from those barrels and those collections, we make a stray dogs as stray barrels. And then 10% of the proceeds go and benefit stray animals, the local and national animal shelters. So if you're buying online or in California, then we have teamed up with the local Sonoma County Humane Society in Healdsburg and Sebastopol, and 10% of proceeds go there. But when a distributor picks up, then we'll donate to a humane society in New York, Arizona, Florida, etc. So going on with that theme of local and national and helping strays and stuff. That's the
so I mean,
there.
a different blend, Grenache, Pinot, and Mourvedre. Not, I mean, you get asked like GSM all the time, but it's GPM, which you don't hear about very often. But I do think, you know, in California, at least, we have the freedom to be able to come up with whatever the best blend is. And we don't have to live with some of the constraints that perhaps you do in some of the old world regions. And I think that's a fun thing, to be able to do that.
Yeah, I agree. And though we're not going to have the Grenache Mourvedre possibly this year, of course, we're still friends with the vineyard manager, but we're looking into making it a little bit more of a consistent expectation, I guess. I mean, if you've had the 2020, the 2021, you're going to have an expectation of the red wine blend as opposed to just the idea of supporting stray animals. So we just signed to source a Zinfandel vineyard. And so kind of focusing on like a little Zinfandel Pinot blend. And again, just playing with the fun bounties that California has to offer us, and not necessarily needing to be stuck to, you know, Pinot from Santa Lucia Highlands or Russian River, but here's a good red wine blend from California.
And one of the things I like about that, while I mean, talk about the constraints in the European system, sometimes they have not lived within those constraints. I mean, Philippe Canby, who used to talk to us frequently, would mention how up 50s, 60s, 70s, they would take Grenache grown in Chateauneuf and sneak it up to Burgundy and blend it with Pinot Noir. That was done. There's a book by Remington Norman about the history of Chateauneuf, and his look into the cellar book showed that over half the Grenache grown in Chateauneuf during those 3 decades was snuck up to Burgundy. So this Grenache Pinot blend idea is not something that is unheard of. It's just not talked about. Even I mean, people hid this stuff a lot.
Yeah. And again, I mean, it's from wonderful vineyards too. Hollyhock Vineyard in Paso Robles, and then another one down in Santa Rita Hills. So, I mean, great fruit and a beautiful wine. I'm really excited about it. I think it just keeps getting better and better in bottle.
I think so too. Honestly, it's been one that I thought when we first put it together was kind of, I don't know, elbows and knees a little.
Awkward teenager stage.
Yeah, awkward teenager. I've got a 15-year-old, so I get that. Awkward teenager stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The true wine for sure.
Yes. And it has really kind of pulled itself together and it's coming together. And I think it's wonderful. And some days I taste a little more of the Grenache. Some days I taste a little more of the Pinot. Given where the Pinot came from, it's actually pretty rich, the Pinot component in here. I think it's really tasty. This is pretty fun, and not a lot of this wine, right?
No, sadly, only about 75 cases produced, and so much less now, probably less than 50.
So as we're coming to the end here, looking ahead to 2022 at Lakeview, and Jim, I'll bring you in on this real quick, and then Moret, kind of what you're looking forward to doing perhaps a little differently. But we're at the very beginning stages of a vintage. Jim, what do you see right now about 2022? What makes you feel good? And knowing a grape grower, what makes you worried already? Because there's always something, there's disaster around every corner and opportunity as well. So
right. There's always something to worry about.
Yeah.
But well, right now, what we're nervous about, but there's nothing we can do about it, is we're having a cold snap, and it's a little colder than normal. That said, I honestly don't think it's going to affect us, because we have not pushed out in the vineyard yet. So we pruned in January. The budget's still tight. They're thinking about waking up, but I think we're fine. I'm looking forward to even though we didn't get any rain in January or February, I'm looking forward to a fairly normal year. I think we're tracking for normalcy, so to speak, based on chilling units. And other than that, nothing out of the ordinary. We had a really good year last year. I'm looking forward to another good year. So I'm just have fingers crossed.
it did seem like those early rains filled up the pond there.
Yeah.
The lake, and that is positive. That's a good thing, because we
Yeah,
didn't need a drought year.
Yeah, that we did need that. Otherwise, we were. I had, well, I don't think it's inappropriate to say you and one other winery were going to walk away if we didn't have a more adequate source. So we got that taken care of. So, which was fair. That's not a dry farm vineyard. So we're feeling good about that. And then I'm knock on wood. Pinot is still in demand, so there's some interest in fruit that we have, and we have long-term contracts. So I'm happy that the Pinot market is still solid, and I think we're going to knock on wood and have a good year.
And so, Moret, then for you, fine tuning what you're doing. I know you spent a little time tasting with a couple of different cooperage houses recently.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's still TBD, but definitely stuff I'm mulling over. With my 2021 vintage, I was able to use just kind of an array of cooperages of different barrels, and it's really exciting to see how each one is interacting with the wine. I really like the idea of keeping some of the 115 separate and then mixing some 115 with the 114 whole cluster. I don't think that really needs to be tweaked, but I think that there is some opportunity to tweak a little bit of the barrels. One has just these great notes of vanilla, but how much vanilla do you need in a wine? I really like having those brown sugar flavors in some Pinots. And I think I get that a little bit more with some Francois Frere. And so it's exciting. And yeah, I'm just really looking forward to 2022. And one thing I learned with last year's vintage is every day was a blessing to be able to source or to wake up and see that we weren't under fire. And I'm just hoping for another, long harvest and being able to pull in all of the fruit from all over California. I mean, everybody. It's just so devastating how the fires affect everyone, and it's not fun, and I'm not a fan. And so I just really hope that we get the full harvest, and looking forward to working with Jim.
I know that one of the things that I think is going to be a lot of fun is having like his rosé. I know at World of Pinot, for a luncheon that I'm doing with Clarice and Beaumarchais, that you are able to show the rosé there. I think you're pouring Stray Dogs at a Clarice member event at the Bucher Vineyard as well. So being able to take the wine out there, and then once the 2021 Pinots are bottled, that's going to be really exciting to have Pinot out in the market and out in the fold.
Yeah, Yeah, it's going to be a very exciting year. I'm looking forward to it, and both in what we're going to be bottling and creating, and then also in what's going to be happening out in the different vineyards that we're a part of. It's looking to be an exciting year, an early year, which I'm, my birthday is in August and I celebrate the entire month. And now knowing that I harvested Lakeview last year on the 26th of August. And so thinking if I'm already 2 weeks ahead, I don't have much time to celebrate my birthday. So we'll see how it goes, but I might have to move into July or take a rain check and move it to after harvest, because I'm still getting the whole month. I just haven't quite figured out how yet.
I thought it was appropriate. You picked on August 26th, which was Clarice's birthday. So just the idea that harvest was on Clarice's birthday was pretty neat. So I think we've reached the hour here. I'm going to unmute folks, but before we go, I am going to take a moment to raise a toast for something somewhat personal, which is tomorrow, February 25th, would be Clarice's daughter, my mom's 100th birthday. She would be 100 tomorrow. She passed away on Valentine's Day of 2020. So when she was almost 98, but tomorrow would be her 100th birthday. And so since we're here as part of certainly to celebrate the wines of Moret and the grapes that Jim does, but also as Clarice members, I'd like to raise a toast to Vera Lee, to my mom, and to all that she did to allow me to be here and to work with people like Moret and Jim and all of that, and to have y'all all as customers. So thank you very, very much for being here. Feel free to unmute yourself and let's do cheers. Thank
Cheers,
you all.
Adam.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks.
Thank you everyone for joining us. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Take care. Have a good evening. Drink some fun wine tonight. So thanks,
Cheers.
Christopher. Take
Thanks
care.
for having me.
Thanks, everyone.
Sure.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.